One thought can change you forever, the power of free will. There are moments in life, rare, electrifying moments, where a single idea, a single realization, changes everything. It's like a switch flips in your mind, and suddenly, the way you see yourself, the world, and your entire existence is never the same again. Maybe you've felt it before. Maybe you were reading a book, listening to a conversation, staring at the ocean, or just lost in thought, and then boom, a new perspective crashes into you like a wave, and suddenly you can't unsee it. This is the power of a single thought. This is how free will, the ability to choose what you believe, interpret, and act upon, can completely rewrite the course of your life. But here's the thing. Most people never experience this transformation. Not because the opportunity isn't there, but because they don't allow themselves to truly think. They live on autopilot, letting their past, their environment, and the expectations of others dictate their reality. They repeat the same patterns, make the same choices, and assume that the way they see the world is the only way it can be seen. But what if that's wrong? What if, right now, you are living inside a mental cage of your own making, and all it takes to break free is one thought? Think about this. Everything you believe about yourself, your intelligence, your worth, your potential, was planted in your mind by something. Your upbringing, your experiences, the people around you, the media you consume. And yet, most people never stop to question these beliefs. But they assume that just because they've always thought a certain way, it must be true. But what if the only thing keeping you from being the person you want to be is the belief that you can't? What if the only thing keeping you trapped in a cycle of negativity, doubt, or fear is the assumption that this is just who you are? Here's where free will comes in. You have the ability right now to change your mind. Not just in the small sense of picking a different meal or choosing a different route home, but in the fundamental sense of deciding who you are and what reality means to you. And that decision, if made consciously, fully, and with conviction, can change your life instantly. One thought, one realization, that's all it takes.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let's go deeper. Have you ever considered how much of your suffering is created not by reality itself, but by your interpretation of it? Two people can go through the exact same experience, losing a job, facing rejection, dealing with failure, and yet, but one will spiral into despair while the other will use it as fuel to grow. Why? Because of how they choose to think about it. The event itself is neutral. The meaning you assign to it is everything. And that meaning is entirely within your control. This is why the greatest minds in history, philosophers, leaders, innovators, have all emphasized the power of thought. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He understood that, while we cannot always control what happens to us, we can always control how we think about it. And the way you think determines everything: your emotions, your actions, your destiny. So here's the question: what thought is currently controlling your life? What belief about yourself, about the world, about what is possible, is shaping your reality? And more importantly, what if you chose to think differently? What if, instead of assuming your limitations are real, you questioned them? What if, instead of seeing obstacles as barriers, you saw them as tests? What if, instead of waiting for change to happen to you, you realized that change begins the moment you decide to see things differently? This is not about blind optimism. This is not about pretending everything is easy. This is about recognizing your own power, the power to decide what reality means to you. Because once you understand that, once you truly internalize it, you become unstoppable. Nothing can break you because you decide what things mean. No setback can defeat you because you choose how to respond. No fear can control you because you are the one who gives it power or takes it away. So ask yourself right now, what is the one thought that, if you allowed yourself to believe it, would change everything? And why haven't you chosen to believe it yet? Breaking the chains, how free will can shatter the illusions that hold you back. Most people don't realize they're trapped. Not by walls, not by circumstances, but by something far more subtle and far more powerful, their own minds. We walk through life believing that the way we see the world is the way it is, that our limitations are real, that our fears are justified. But what if none of that is true? What if, right now, you are living inside a reality that is only real because you've accepted it as such? And what if, with a single act of free will, you could break free? Here's where things get interesting. Free will is not just the ability to choose between one option and another. It's not just about picking a career, a city to live in, or what to eat for dinner. Real free will, the kind that changes lives, is the ability to choose your own perception of reality, and the ability to decide what is possible for you. The ability to rewrite your own story, not based on your past, not based on what others have told you, but based on a conscious decision to see things differently. And the moment you realize this, the moment you truly grasp that you are not a prisoner of your past, your fears, or your circumstances, everything changes. Think about it. How much of what you believe about yourself was given to you by someone else? Maybe a teacher told you that you weren't smart enough. Maybe your parents made you feel like you weren't capable. Maybe society convinced you that success is only for a certain kind of person, and you're not it. And so, without realizing it, you accepted these ideas as truth. You carried them with you, letting them shape your decisions, your confidence, your future. But what if they were never true to begin with? What if they were just ideas, and the only thing keeping them alive is that you haven't questioned them? This is where true transformation happens. The moment you start questioning the beliefs that have shaped you, the moment you challenge the assumptions that have kept you small, you begin to reclaim your power. Because here's the truth, nothing outside of you has control over your mind unless you give it permission. No past failure, no negative comment, no societal expectation can define you unless you decide to accept it. And if you have the power to accept it, you have the power to reject it. Now, let's take this even further. Imagine two people standing at the edge of a massive challenge. Maybe they both just lost everything, their job, their home, their sense of security. One person sees it as the end. They spiral into despair, believing that life is unfair, that they are doomed to fail, that there is no way forward. The other person sees it as the beginning. They take the exact same situation and interpret it as an opportunity to reinvent themselves, to grow, to prove to themselves that they are stronger than they ever imagined. Same event, two completely different realities. And the only difference between them is thought. So, what about you? What thoughts are shaping your reality right now? Are they empowering you, or are they keeping you small? And more importantly, do you have the courage to let go of the ones that are no longer serving you? Because make no mistake, this is not easy. Changing your mind at a fundamental level is one of the hardest things you will ever do. It requires letting go of who you thought you were. It requires facing the uncomfortable truth that many of the limitations in your life exist only because you have allowed them to. But the reward is freedom. The reward is the realization that you are not your past. You are not your fears. You are not the narrative that has been handed to you. You are whatever you decide to be. And that decision is happening right now, not tomorrow, not when things are easier, not when you feel more ready, right now. Because the only thing that stands between you and the life you want is the belief that you can't have it. And that belief is just a thought that you have the power to change. So, what will you choose? Will you stay inside the story that has kept you stuck? Or will you take the leap, shatter the illusion, and step into the reality that has been waiting for you all along? The choice is yours. It always has been. The point of no return, when you finally realize you are in control, there comes a moment when you can't go back. A moment when you see, with absolute clarity, that you are the one holding the pen, the one writing the story of your life. The one who has been choosing consciously or unconsciously every interpretation, every belief, every reaction. And once you see it, once you truly understand that your thoughts are not chains but tools, that your mind is not a prison but an instrument, everything shifts. You can't unsee the truth. You can't pretend that you don't have control anymore. And that is both terrifying and liberating. Because here's the thing, the moment you accept that you are in control, you lose the ability to blame. You can no longer say, I can't change because of my past. You can no longer say, other people are holding me back. You can no longer use circumstances, failures, or fears as excuses to stay small. When you embrace the reality of free will, you take full responsibility for your life. And that level of responsibility is heavy. It forces you to confront the ways you've been holding yourself back. It forces you to admit that, in many cases, the limits you thought were imposed on you were actually self-imposed. And that realization can be painful. But on the other side of that pain is power. Because if you created a reality where you felt stuck, lost, or incapable, then you can create a new reality where you are free, unstoppable, and capable of anything. The same mind that built the walls around you can tear them down. The same thoughts that made you feel small can make you limitless. It's all about what you choose to believe, and belief is a choice. Think about this. Every person you admire, every success story, every legend started in the exact same place you are right now. But they started with doubts. They started with fears. They started with voices telling them they weren't enough. The difference, they chose to think differently. They chose to believe in possibilities instead of limitations. They chose to see failure not as a wall, but as a stepping stone. They chose to take control of their inner world, knowing that their outer world would eventually follow. So now, it's your turn. What will you choose? Because the truth is, most people will never reach this point. They will spend their lives reacting instead of creating, blaming instead of taking responsibility, wishing instead of deciding. They will stay trapped in a story that they don't even realize they are writing. But you have a chance to break free, right here, right now, with one thought. And once you make that choice, once you decide that you are the creator of your reality, there is no going back. You will see the world differently. You will see yourself differently. And most importantly, you will start to act differently. Because a person who understands their own power does not wait for life to change, they change it themselves. So ask yourself, are you ready to take full control? Are you ready to stop living by default and start living by design? Because if you are, then the life you've always wanted is no longer a distant dream. It is a decision, and that decision is yours to make. The awakening, when you become the architect of your own destiny, there is a moment when everything clicks. When you realize, deep in your bones, that nothing outside of you has the final say over your life. That every limitation, every fear, every doubt you've ever had was only as real as you allowed it to be. And in that moment, you don't just feel free, you become free. Because freedom isn't about escaping your circumstances. It's about mastering your mind. It's about understanding that the only thing that has ever truly controlled you was your perception. And now, finally, you see that your perception is yours to shape. Most people never reach this point. They live their lives as if they are passengers in their own story, as if life is something that happens to them rather than something they are actively creating. They wait for permission, for the right moment, for some external force to tell them it's time to change. But that moment never comes, and so they stay stuck in the same patterns, repeating the same thoughts, trapped in an invisible cycle of their own making. But you are different. You are waking up. You are realizing that life has always been in your hands, and now you are ready to take full control. And this is where everything changes. Because once you understand that you are the architect of your own destiny, you start making decisions differently. You stop reacting emotionally to every challenge and start responding with clarity. You stop seeing failures as signs to quit and start seeing them as lessons to grow. You stop waiting for opportunities and start creating them. You stop living in fear of what might happen and start shaping what will happen. But here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. This transformation is not easy. It requires discipline. It requires an unshakable commitment to yourself. It requires breaking old habits, challenging old beliefs, and stepping into discomfort over and over again. It means taking full responsibility for your actions, your mindset, your life. No more excuses, no more blaming, no more waiting. It means realizing that the person you become is entirely up to you. And that is the greatest power you will ever possess. Because when you take full ownership of your life, nothing can stop you. Not rejection, not failure, not fear. Because you know that everything is just part of the process, part of the path you are actively creating. You are no longer a victim of circumstance, you are the force that shapes reality itself. So now, the only question that remains is this: what will you do with this power? Will you rise to the challenge, embrace the responsibility, and step into the life you were always capable of creating? Or will you let this moment pass, slipping back into old patterns, convincing yourself that change is for other people, but that you are still bound by the illusions you now know are false? The choice is yours. It has always been yours, and the moment you truly understand that your life will never be the same again,